Hi, friends. In case you haven't seen it by now, and if you haven't, where have you been? There's a fun collab going on right now with a bunch of my favorite creators making over plushies from Mariah Elizabeth. Creative Paula started the collab, and she challenged our friend Di, who challenged Ashley Monet, and guess what? Now it's my turn. Obviously. I mean, why would I make an intro for a collab I wasn't invited to? Anyway, Ashley challenged me, and then when I'm done, I'm going to challenge someone else. But you're going to have to stick around until the end to see who I'm challenging. But now, I need to figure out what plushie I'm going to do. I've got a couple because I wanted to have options, and I just can't control myself when it comes to shopping sometimes. So let's open these up and see what we got. First, we have Burp. Then we have Pumpkin, something, Pupkin? Pumpy the Pupkin. Okay, so before I decide which one I'm going to do, I need to see what challenge Ashley's given me.
Rose Raquin, your mission, should you choose to accept it, and you better. What I mean to say is, hi Rose, I am here to offer you your challenge for how you're gonna modify that there mystery plush. I wanted to give you kind of a two-part challenge, something where we can kind of marry our channels together. So let's talk about you. I know that you love sharks, and hey, same. So my challenge for you, challenge number 1, is to include a shark in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if you want to make your plushie a shark. I don't know if your plushie is going to have a shark tattoo. I don't know if your plushie is going to have a little shark friend to go along with it. It's up to you. Must be a shark somewhere in there. And then to bring my channel into the mix, I'm going to need to see you go a little bit darker, Rose. I know you love your pinks. I know you love your rainbows. But for me, I'm going to need you to put some black in there. So there you have it. Something shark, something black. I don't care how big or small. That part's up to you, but I can't wait to see what you make of it.
Okay. I think I got it. Actually, that idea came to me way too quickly, so now I'm worried. I mean, did you see what everyone did before me? I don't know if this idea is going to match that. Well, I'm just going to do it anyway. And my victim is Burp. First, we need to take some measurements. I'm tracing out a rough profile of the back of his head so that I can use that to make a shark fin. Yes, we're going right for the obvious and making a shark fin for his head. But he isn't going to become a shark. He's just going to wear a shark fin to scare his friends at the pool. But Burp can't actually swim. Well, maybe since I'm adding my own canon, he's not Burp anymore. He's Slurp. Anyway, he can't swim, so he needs a floaty. I got this weird circle thingy in a subscription box, and I don't know how to actually use it, so it's just been sitting around, but I thought that it would be perfect for measuring his waist for the floaty. I did add a little bit of room because I don't trust my pattern making skills, and bigger is going to be better than too small. Then I tried to make 2 concentric circles, but I have no idea how to do that with whatever this tool is. That's definitely not how you do it though. I tried going with close enough, but when I cut it out and folded it in half, it became pretty clear that it was really off. So I ended up getting out my trusty old circle maker, which has lines so that you can center it. And after fixing that and cutting it out, I tested it on Slurp. And it looks good. I'm going to make a second circle with a wavy outside edge, and we all know what these 2 shapes make together. This is going to be a donut floaty, obviously. Also, Slurp is a bit of a scaredy cat, a scaredy T-Rex, so just to be on the safe side, he's going to wear some arm floaties too. I'm going to make all of these little items out of felt because I'm going to be hand sewing them all, and felt seems pretty forgiving when it comes to hand sewing. So I traced all my patterns out and then cut them out. And I have a weird question. Is felt something that you can use fabric scissors on? Like, I know you can't use fabric scissors on stuff that isn't fabric because it will dull the blades, but is felt technically fabric? It is tons of tiny little fibers stuck together, so it's like the particle board of the fabric world. but would it ruin my fabric scissors if I use them on felt? I feel like I should know this. Now that everything is cut out, I need some embroidery floss to sew everything together. And yes, my embroidery floss is perfectly wrapped and labeled for no other reason than that I'm very extra. We'll need some needles and some thread to match each color of felt. Now, this may look sort of familiar to some of you because I've actually sewed a donut before in a little plushie kit. So I'm just going to follow those same steps. I started by attaching the frosting to one of the donut pieces with a whip stitch around the outside of the frosting. Is it called a whip stitch because you can just whip it out? Whip, whip, whip. Seriously, this is so easy. Until I got halfway around and realized this frosting is way too small. There should definitely be more covering the donut. And when it's going to be filled and curved, it's going to look even smaller. I briefly considered ripping the whole thing out, but that seemed like way more work than I wanted to do. So I just finished stitching it on, and then I cut out another thicker frosting and sewed that to the other side. When I sew everything together, it'll just be like some frosting dripped down through the center. And you probably won't be able to see it anyway. I clipped it together because felt likes to stretch and move around on me, and then I started whip stitching all 4 layers together on the inner circle, which was not without its own difficulties. When I whip stitched the outer circle about halfway around, I stuffed some stuffing in it, and then I just continued stitching and stuffing until I worked all the way around. Now for the arm floaties. I've never made arm floaties before. Weirdly, there is no plushy food in the shape of an arm floaty. So I'm just gonna make it up as I go along and bring you along with me. I started with 2 rectangles, the length which will go around Slurp's arm. I whip stitched around 3 sides, both ends, and one of the long sides. And then I used, I don't really know what this stitch is called when you just go in and out. A straight stitch, maybe? Well, I just did that 3 times across the rectangles, basically making 4 little pockets. In my mind, arm floaties were made like that, but I can't seem to find a single picture of one that looks like that, so I think I just hallucinated it. Oh well, we're just gonna keep going with it. So I stuffed each little pocket and sewed up the last long side. When I tried it on him, it seemed a little tight. So I sewed it closed when it was on his arm, just so that I could make sure that it fit. It was kind of like a little blood pressure cuff on this guy, so rather than sewing the whole end up, I ended up just pulling the corners together and securing those. That way he won't lose all sensation in his arm when he's trying to swim. One more fit test, and then while it's on him, I'm going to sew some frosting onto the top to cover that hole. I wonder if this is what stylists feel like when they're sewing their celebrities into dresses for award shows. Alright, let's make a second one. And now that he's sure to float, let's move on to Slurp himself. First, we need to make his shark fin. I'm going to use black felt for this. And forget to reverse the pattern piece so that my white outlines would be together on the inside. Don't worry, I'll just cut out another piece. I'm going to attempt to attach it like this over his little spine ruffle. I sewed around the top of the fin, just above where the ruffle will fit in, did a little bit of trimming so that it will lay better, stuffed a teeny tiny bit of stuffing in, and then I whip stitched it to his head. You know how you sew costumes to your actual body? I went down one side, through the ruffle, and up the other side. But then we had a problem. That looks nuts. That does not look like a shark fin. It looks like he's got a weird mohawk on his head. That is not going to scare his friends. They'll just wonder why there's a black almond floating towards them. Maybe if I sew the sides further out on his head a bit, that will taper it a bit more. So I ripped one side out and re-stitched it further away. That seemed to help enough that I didn't rip the other side out. because honestly, I was ready to move on from sewing at this point. If you look closely, you can see the seam on the front of the fin is kind of off to one side, but it's not really showing on camera. Now to do something with the rest of him. First, I gotta cut off his tag. I'm trying to get as close as I can, but not cut the fabric. Whew, that was beautiful. That is the cleanest butt I've ever seen. Now, that black shark fin fulfills both parts of Ashley's challenge, but the fin being the only black on him kinda seems a bit like cheating to me. So I'm gonna go a step further. First, I need to tape his arms up so they're out of the way. That looks like how they put babies in MRIs. Alright, here comes the scary part. There's no going back from this. I'm painting on some black swim trunks with a brush on fabric paint. I'm going incredibly slow so that I don't make any mistakes, because there's no sanding it off or painting over it. It is much easier to get a nice crisp line though when you paint in the direction that the fabric naturally lays. Once the front is completely done, I can flip him over and paint the back. Of course, leaving an opening for his tail and going under that spine. These are some low-rise swim shorts. With all of that done, well, that's just a lot of black for my liking. I need him to be more colorful. So I'm going to add back some of his burp splooches, or splotches. I can't remember what his are called. Plus, he's not burp anymore, he's slurp. Either way, he's getting some spots on his fin and his swim trunks. Does it make sense that his birthmarks have manifested onto his clothing? Well, yes, because this is new magic chameleon fabric that changes to match its wearer. Also, major props to Mariah for these splooches, because they look random, but I know that it took some major planning to make them all different sizes and colors, while also keeping the placement even and not looking too full or too bare in any area. Once they dried, the spots did look kind of messy, especially on the felt since it's all the little hairs sticking up. So I used some teeny tiny scissors to trim it all up a little bit. Then, you really didn't think I was going to miss a chance for sprinkles, did you? No, I added some sprinkles to the frosting on the floaties in 4 of the 5 splooch colors. The 5th color was pink, and I didn't really think it would show up too well. And I think we're finally done with Slurp, so it's time to add all of his accessories on. Well, he's pretty darn cute. But I still have this other plushie, so I'm just gonna paint him to match Slurp. This is Pumpy, but maybe he needs a new name too. Anyway, I have an idea, but the order of operations is gonna be a little backward, because he has this weird pumpkin guts area here, and that's not gonna match what I have in mind. So I'm gonna need to paint that first. I tape back his little cap thing, and I'm just gonna paint this blue. It's supposed to be water kind of dripping down his head, but this paint is doing absolutely nothing. This is brush on fabric paint, just like the black paint, but it's a different brand. And even after 5 coats, it's still looking kind of green. But that already took hours, so we're just gonna move on. I'm taping under his pumpkin lid hat thing and taping his ears back so we don't get paint on them. The rest of the pumpkin, I'm just gonna paint really carefully. I cut off the tag on this one, and then, so that he matches, I'm gonna use the same colors as on Slurp. And we have 12 pumpkin bump stripe things. And that's not divisible by 5, so I'm gonna get rid of one of these colors. Either blue or yellow. Alright, I think I'm gonna do this one. I'm gonna start here, and even though I am painting really carefully, plushies don't really stay stretched out like I'm holding it, so the second I let go, I got paint on his neck area. So I had to tape all around his head. And back to painting. I'm continuing these stripes up onto the cap because this is not gonna be a pumpkin anymore, this is a beach ball. And Pumpy busted out of it. I spent a lot of time while I was painting working to get the fabric fibers to lay nice and flat. I didn't have that much trouble when painting Slurp, but that fabric was also a little less plush. And this paint is not brush-on fabric paint. It's a mixture of puffy and matte fabric paint. It's just colors that I already had mixed up from squishy painting, and I adjusted them slightly to match the spots. Each stripe ended up taking 2 coats to get it laying nicely and looking solid and not like it's been rolling through the desert for 100 years. I definitely would not recommend painting this large of a portion of a plushie like I am, because the paint does get pretty chunky with all of the fibers under it. But we gotta do what we gotta do. After the front was done, I flipped him over and did the whole thing again. He looks pretty good, except yes, there is one orange spot right there that's really bothering me. I tried to trim it off with some scissors, but it's there to stay. I did trim off a few other areas where I accidentally got paint. That is one of the fun things about painting on plushies. Small mistakes you can just snip off. The last thing I gotta do something with is this thing up here. I think I'm gonna make it one of those inflatable valve things. You know, the thing that you blow into to blow it up? I used some white felt and wrapped it around to cover the stem. I should have sewn this onto the stem, but instead I thought it would be really simple to make a little tube and slip it over the stem. It was not. I probably should have just painted this. Actually, I probably should have just cut the whole thing off. But either way, I did eventually get it on there. And it is not coming off. Then I used a gray paint marker to paint the line where the little, cap is. Does it really look like a valve? No, not really. But that's what it is. This is not the most exciting design, but he's cute and he'll match Slurp. So now that I've completed my challenge, it's time for me to challenge someone else. And I'm going to challenge Chantel from Chantel Arts. You're going to have to go to her channel next week to see her video. Here's a little hint for her challenge. I'll also link a playlist up here to all of the videos so far. And that's it. What do you think? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.